Thank you, Vance. Good morning, dear ones, or good afternoon, or good evening if you're watching later. It's great to be with you again. Vance, thank you so much for that introduction. Judy and Maya, thank you for the invitation and the opportunity. Diego, thanks for doing what you do. Norma, thanks for an awesome opening treatment. And greetings, dear ones. It is great to be back with you. My topic for today is Mission Possible as a Little Child. So we remember the words of Jesus from Matthew 18, verses 3 and 4. And Jesus said, "Truly I say to you, unless you change and become like little children, you shall not enter the kingdom of heaven. Whoever therefore will humble himself like this little child shall be great in the kingdom of heaven." Note that he said as a little child or childlike, not childish. As we know, there's a difference. Little children, as a little child. So I was thinking about this experience of being a little child. Again, childlike, not childish, because we have those days. But childlike to me means not concerned with what happened yesterday, not concerned overly with what's going to happen tomorrow or even later this afternoon, always in the moment. Not worried about how whatever it is they want is going to happen, only the what. The how is somebody else's responsibility. So the question for us is, what did Jesus mean by the kingdom of heaven? I would suggest that that's not the sweet by and by. That is our moment by moment experience. And as you know, today we can experience heaven. And we can experience hell because it is a moment by moment experience. And as we change our thinking and change our emotions and change our outlook, our experiences change and we experience that heaven rather than hell. It is expressing all the good that life has for us in our physical health, in our finances, in our relationships, in our work life. So every area of our lives, we can and have the opportunity to express and experience that experience of heaven. And we'll talk more about that. Little children are not concerned with what happened yesterday. They aren't concerned with what happened earlier today. They're just so often are just in the moment. One of my favorite books, the title is Smile for No Good Reason by Lee Jampolsky. And he talks about toddler wisdom with 3 points related to toddler wisdom. First one being, bye-bye. You're leaving. When will you be back? When will I see you again? Not a concern. Bye-bye. I'm going to go on and play with my whatever. I'm going to go out and run around with the dog. I'm going to go watch a cartoon. Bye-bye. Just not a thing. So first one is bye-bye. Second one is all gone. My son, as Vance mentioned, I have 7 grandchildren up in Oregon. And my son and daughter-in-law live up there with the kiddos. And I had the opportunity to visit last month and just had the greatest time. And of course, whenever I'm with them and my son, I am reminded of when he was a little boy many, many, many years ago. He loved broccoli, raw broccoli dipped in ranch dressing, moderately healthy, right? Remember him sitting in his high chair, eating his trees. He called it trees. And then when it was all gone, it was all gone. And he got down out of his high chair and went and played or did what he did. No worry about, oh, but what are we going to do for dinner? Oh, my goodness, when are we going to get more broccoli? He just was always in the moment and had that faith and that knowing that when that was done, some other good will flow into his life when it's time to eat again. So bye-bye, all gone. And my favorite, whoopsie, spill the milk. Whoopsie, stepped on the dog. Whoopsie, but what are we going to do now? How often do we carry resentments and regrets and angers and frustrations from something that happened earlier this morning or last week or 20 years ago. It keeps us from expressing and experiencing all the good life has for us. It keeps us maybe out of deservedness because we're holding on to that guilt and shame and regret for whatever happened, rather than just saying, whoopsie, so bye-bye, all gone, and whoopsie. Great wisdom. So my question for us today is, how is our relationship with Spirit, with God, with the universe, with our higher power, whatever we choose to call it? When we say amen or and so it is, do we absolutely know and feel and accept and believe that something happens? Or do we have a plan B? Yes, but if God doesn't do what I want, then, or if that doesn't change the way I want, then, because if we have a plan B, then it's a little wishy-washy, and to me, we're throwing a little water on the fire versus saying, and Norma talked about this in her wonderful treatment, I know my word does not return to me void. I absolutely know that when I say, and so it is, something happens. So our theme, you may know that our theme for September is transcendent purpose. So I've heard that word before. I probably used that word before, but what do we mean and what do we do when we transcend something? So of course you can find anything you want to know on the internet. And so I did some research, and the word transcend comes from the Latin prefix trans, meaning beyond, and the word sandare, I think, meaning to climb. So when we achieve transcendence, we've gone beyond ordinary limitations and climbed up above whatever that was before. So transcending the usual, transcending what we might have been taught as children. Remember the book, The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. And he talks about this experience of domestication, that when we were young, we were taught what to do, how to be, how life is. Ideally, come in when it gets dark, come in from playing when it gets dark. At least those of us of a certain generation were out playing and came in when it got dark. Look both ways before you cross the street. Don't go home with strangers. Eat your meal first, your dinner first before you have dessert. That's a little iffy, so you can adjust that if you want to, but your life to decide on that. But the point is, so many of those things in our domestication that he writes about in the book. What do we believe about money? What do we believe about possibility? What do we believe about relationships and life and other people and those, and whatever age we are? What do we believe about this age? Well, you know, when you get to a certain age, ... is that really our truth? Or are we just accepting what somebody else told us or what we were taught growing up? We were domesticated by presumably relatives and friends and even ministers, and people who, and all of those people who loved us and wanted the best for us. But the rules that they taught us were based on their experience. And at any point, we can look back and say, that's what I believe because that's what I was taught. No blame, no anything, just it was what it was. But up until now, but there's possibility today in this moment to change my belief into one that works for me. So often little children are taught not to dream. Just be practical. Be, nice, but not likely. But to stay in your lane, to be practical, to play the hand you were dealt. But how often do we hear about people who are amazing singers, for example, and went home and went into the house singing, and their mother told them, you can't sing. Would you be quiet, please? And they stopped, maybe for years or decades. And it wasn't that they couldn't sing, is that the mother had a headache or she had a bad day at work or whatever the case might be. But that was her truth in the moment. But yet we believed what she told us. And so we carried that with us for a long time. Do we allow ourselves to dream? Think about goals versus dreams. I think it was Mary Morrissey that talked about this, that the goal is something you can do on your own or with the help of a friend. But you don't necessarily need divine intervention to allow that to happen. So the goal is cleaning out the junk drawer this afternoon or the garage. Good luck with that. Going to the gym this afternoon. Whatever the case might be. But a goal is something we can do on our own. A dream requires spirit. A dream requires us to say, I don't know how to do this, but I know somehow, some way that it can happen for me and will happen for me. And I'm open to learning what I need to do to allow that, not make that, but allow that to happen. Remember the quote from Alice in Wonderland that Alice is talking with the queen about impossibility. And Alice says, there's no use trying. One can't believe impossible things. And the queen replies, well, then you've not had very much practice. Why, sometimes I've believed as many as six impossible things before breakfast. 6 impossible things. Impossible. Somebody said, and it wasn't me, but let's separate that from impossible to I am possible. And that can be our new mantra. So to move out of where we are into where we want to be also requires hope. Now, I will admit that I had trouble with this word. And, the Centers for Spiritual Living give us the theme for the year, the theme for the month, the themes for the week, and then some suggested discussion points and quotes and so forth. And so I was reading through that for today. To me, and of course, it's always our perception of whatever the word is, but to me, hope sounds like, I hope I'll be able to do that. Kind of a vanilla, milk toasty, not power-filled word. But listen to these words and this is from the book, The Power and Science of Hope by Margaret Naguib. And she writes, it's the voice of hope in an otherwise hopeless situation that either whispers or shouts, anything is possible. Researchers in the field of positive psychology have posited that hope is the single most important feeling state. Individuals who have significant levels of hope are more physically healthy and less susceptible to disease. They perform better academically and athletically. In fact, elite athletes score exceptionally high on psychological measures of hope, indicating that raw talent, grit, or even optimism without hope is sufficient when pursuing difficult goals. So again, it's all about our perception of the word, but I want to do this. And I do my spiritual mind treatment, my affirmative prayer. And I say, and so it is. This is really interesting. Think about this concept of hope as the anticipation of that manifesting for me. It's the anticipation of going on that amazing trip to Iceland. Don't you want to go meet the puffins? I want to meet the puffins in Iceland. So we do our affirmative prayer, and then we have that hope, that feeling, that knowing that trip is happening for me, that new job is happening for me, that new relationship is happening for me, that greater financial abundance is happening for me. So again, it's the definition in the dictionary, but it's also our perception of the word hope. So we have that hope when we do our affirmative prayer and say, and so it is, that whatever it is going to happen for us. In the book, she goes on to say, hope is more than just optimism. It's a core principle that empowers our spiritual journey. Rooted in our connection to the divine, hope becomes a dynamic force aligning our thoughts with universal abundance and possibility. So we pray, we do our spiritual mind treatment, our affirmative prayer, and then we move our feet, because you can find anything on the internet, as we know, and some that we wanted to find and some that we didn't. I was curious. So where did you've heard that expression before, pray, then move your feet. Where does that come from? Well, it is an African proverb, meaning that faith should inspire action and that people should be proactive in achieving their goals and dreams rather than just relying on prayer alone. So if I'm looking for a new job and I do my affirmative prayer and then I go and sit in the corner and wait for the phone to ring, possibly, but pray, then move your feet. So go to the Journal-Constitution and look for the want ads. Go on the internet and look at Indeed. Go and talk with people and begin to work toward that, allowing spirit to do what spirit does and acting on the intuitive ideas that come to us, but also doing our part in creating whatever it is. So think about that concept. I invite us, including me, to think about that concept of hope and how that can inspire us and keep us more moving forward. Ernest Holmes is quoted as saying, if it is the Father's good pleasure to give us the kingdom, it should be our good pleasure to receive it. And so to do that, to recognize that all good things are possible, how important it is to be aware of that, to recognize that, and to allow spirit to do what spirit does with us as a little child in possibility. Little children aren't concerned with whether it's going to come FedEx or UPS or DHL or Postal Service or DoorDash. Little children just know they want it. They accepted it. And then you, dear ones in their lives, you, spirit, get to decide the how. And how important it is for us to recognize that the how is none of our business. It's the what. And the allowing and the saying, yes, thank you, and more please. Because all good things are possible for us. So my question for us today is, what lights us up? What makes our hearts sing and our tails wag? What if you're on Facebook or Instagram or some other social media, what work or what program or what situation really lights you up in a positive way? And what lights us up in a negative way? What really touches our hearts? And our hearts say, I could get involved in that. Because to me, sometimes I'm looking at Facebook and, Facebook is a wonderful thing and you just keep scrolling past the stuff that you don't need to read. But I see an amazing program and I'm like, that's really cool. And I hit the like button and somehow I think that I've done my part. But there's more to do. And I would suggest that if it makes our heart sing either in a positive way or an, oh my goodness, what could I do to help that? That's the opportunity for us, recognizing that all good things are possible. As Vance mentioned, I work with homeless 18 to 24-year-olds in San Diego. And there's this amazing program that I found in Atlanta on Facebook, thank God for Facebook, called Lost and Found Youth. And they work with homeless LGBTQ plus people and especially youth in Atlanta. They have a drop-in center where folks can go and charge their phones, have a meal, talk with community resources, and they have a thrift store on Chantilly Drive. Pretty amazing. Next time I'm in Atlanta, I definitely want to go and visit with them. And if that lights you up, that might be something to consider getting involved with. What an amazing program. What an amazing opportunity. And how cool is it that whoever started this said they got that divine thought, that divine discontent, and said, there's a need for this. We can do something about this. Because everything is possible. When we become as a little child and don't get involved with the how, only the what, and allow Spirit to do what Spirit does. Because that's what we're here for. I'd like to close with this, my favorite, very most favorite quote from Jack London. And he writes, and you've probably heard this before, but it's good for me to hear it, and I bet it will be for you as well. I would rather be ashes than dust. I would rather that my spark should burn out in a brilliant blaze than it should be stifled by dry rot. I would rather be a superb meteor, every atom of me in magnificent glow, than a sleepy and permanent planet. The proper function of man and woman is to live, not to exist. I shall not waste my days in trying to prolong them. I shall use my time. So with that in mind, join me in the light for just a minute. So on this glorious day in Atlanta and San Diego and Oregon and places all over the world, we give great thanks for the technology that allows us to be together today or later if we're watching later. We give thanks for this beloved spiritual community and the opportunity to come together and be reminded of the truth of our being. We give thanks for the reminder, because that's all it ever is, that we are the beloved, that we can say, yes, thank you, and more please, and move into that which makes our hearts sing and our tails wag. We can look at that divine discontent and say, what can I do about that? We can look at that calling that we feel in the heart of our being and say, I want to do that, and allow Spirit to guide us and direct us into the next most amazing chapter of our lives. And we say yes. For this day, for this community, for our time together, we give great thanks. And together we say, and so it is.